think we're on the hour, so we're going to start recording. Wonderful. In the Zoom room, we always get this big announcement. That's why we pause for this moment. I watched the recordings and I was like, that looks so funny. But for all of you watching, that's why we pause, because there's a big, we are recording now. Okay, welcome to another session of the EYP Masterclass series. And today I have Melissa with me. Yay, it's the first time I think I'm hosting one of your sessions. I'm gonna get to witness one of your sessions. Woohoo. And we're gonna do Joker pose to embrace your playfulness. Yesterday I mentioned already that for those of you who are like, yay, this is something I love doing, it's not a big deal maybe, and you might have a lot of fun doing this. But for some of you, the playfulness can also be an edge. So as always, EYP is not about yoga on a mat, but it's really about that transfer to daily life. It's about figuring out what your relationship is to certain qualities, to certain expressions, also in your own life. And we use poses to figure that out, and also to possibly train that and make you more familiar with it or ease you into it. And we have 26 poses in total, which is quite a lot. And we've had the luxury to focus on one pose per session during this week, which is really nice and spacious. Otherwise, we only get that on trainings. And the EYP system can be used in 3 different ways. And we've kind of figured that out over the years as well. It's not even such an old system, but it's been developed with that entire embodiment, understanding and knowledge and background by a group of different yoga teachers and Mark Walsh. And they figured that yoga can be so much more. And then we also figured how useful it is in a coaching context in particular. So not only for self-development, but also for the coaching context. And obviously how it started was in the yoga context. And therefore now there are also 3 specific trainings that we offer, because we figured that just offering EYP teacher trainings for yoga teachers might not fit everyone. And since we believe, and I've experienced it in my own coaching practice as well, how powerful these poses can be and how quick they get to deep insights and integrating certain sides in myself or in my clients as well. We were like, okay, let's figure out a way to make it accessible to people that maybe just want to do that for themselves and want to dive into a course for their own self-development. And then also for those who are coaches. And maybe those of you are in with me in the Zoom chat, you can give us a shout as well. If there are any coaches or yoga teachers in the room. If you're here for just learning for yourself, that's great as well. And as usual, we'll be playing you a little video to give you a much more visual flavor of what it looks like to use EYP in that yoga and coaching.
What the EYP course for coaches has to offer you is a way to shift things from getting stuck in the head and getting into the body. These very simple forms can be done in normal clothing, in any setting, anywhere, and you can then begin to look at the patterns that might be keeping your clients stuck. As a coach, I use this mostly with my clients with intimacy and relationship and communication, and as soon as I get them to move from the cerebral part of the conversation and getting them down and into their body.
See yourself as you see other people, because I have a very critical eye at the moment.
So when you sign up, there's plenty of support available to you. We have a private Facebook group that you are welcome to join. We have monthly Q&A calls, so you get a lot of ideas of how other people are using the same things.
However many times I watch this, every time it makes me smile, because I've seen it myself so many times that somebody simply taking a pose has a deep emotional kind of response to it and a deep insight as well. And the other thing I want to stress is the community around it. So there's I think there are around 50 EYP teachers qualified by now. And it's such a beautiful community. Even in this room, we have 4 people teaching EYP. And that exchange between peers is one of the most beautiful things I find because everyone brings their very own flavor to it and their very own background, whether that's coaching and all these other things. And really it becomes this mix. There's not like the rigidity that maybe some forms of yoga might bring, but it feels alive, and it feels so beautifully diverse as well in that. And today I'm really happy this evening for some of you, and maybe morning or midday already, to have Melissa with me. So Melissa is a body witch and yoga teacher, and that already is like, Melissa is a science-based practicing witch who is dedicated to helping connect to people to their intuition through the power of movement. So instead of like going into the, maybe woo, she really finds that combination and through the body, bringing us back to the body. And I'm really excited to see your version and your take on Joker pose and how to embrace playfulness more.
Thank you. That was a great way to describe where my work tends to land, at the intersection between a concrete scientific experience that we can use language around that's shared by most people so we can convey effectively what we're experiencing, but also leave space for something more. And I want people here to know, both on Zoom and all the live streams, that whatever language I may use today that resonates for me, and I'm going to try to use so much to cover a vast array of experience so that you have that language to use for yourself. You don't have to take anything I'm saying as a certain standard or an absolute. It's your experience. So if I use a word that you're like, I don't get that, or what's that? There'll be plenty of other ways to explain what your experience with language that resonates for you authentically. And I think, honestly, that's what makes me most excited about the Embodied Yoga Principles program, because I see that in the same way. Because if I allow myself to go into my woo, right, which I don't mind calling and expressing it my woo, if I think of the alchemy of movement, I'm going to create an experience using the magic of my body. That's really exciting for me. And that can open the doors to, oh, how am I going to shift my inner state of being? How am I going to express myself? How will I manifest something I want and an experience I desire? But if that language is too far out or not concrete enough, EYP has given practitioners like myself to a language to cross that bridge to other people who maybe are not familiar with using their bodies this way. It's really easy if you're like in a yoga setting or with other witches to be like, let's strike that goddess pose and make it all come to us. And they're like, yeah. And then other people are like, what the fuck are you talking about? And that's fair. And we're using this system to create a better world. So we need to find language that unites us in it, as opposed to excluding and being like, oh, this is not for you. Like, you don't get it. No, it's for all of us. So I'm inviting you into that. And with that being said, aside from feeling free to own the experience, we've been covering the 3 C's. Number 1, consent. Sometimes, like Christina said, things can feel triggering. And even though I love Joker pose and kind of live in Joker pose a lot as a mode of survival in a city like New York City, it's not always healthy and it's not always appropriate given your context or your situation. And it can feel really aggravating, or maybe you're uncomfortable with the vulnerability of playfulness, and that's okay. So you only have to go as far as you want to, and listen to that innate wisdom you have in your body. If you don't know how far to go, feel, take it below the neck and feel. And if something feels like, no, just watch me make a fool of myself. No problem. And grab it from there. You don't have to do anything you want to do. So if you need to turn off your camera or something like that, or practice off screen, that's fair. So also self-care before you dive into a practice that is as state changing, as we like to say in the EYP program. This is a practice of self-inquiry. It's simple, but it's incredibly effective. And that's what makes it so delightful also. But ask yourself before we go into it, before you go for the deep dive, do I feel ready? Do I feel resourced? Do I want to go this far with it? And that's up to you to define and play with your edge. So your self-care and also confidentiality. In reality, nothing on the internet is confidential. So, you know, but I would like to enter into this group experience, at least with the understanding that what we will experience today can feel significant for all of us. I have been attending EYP sessions and have felt really significant experiences myself. And knowing that I was in a safe space with a group that would respect anything I share, you know, not be derisive in the chats, or just know that if anybody shares anything deeply, that's to be respected. So a little wave of the hands to say, like, I got my 3 C's, I'm ready to go. I'm buckled and ready to do this. Yay. Okay, so let's take 3 breaths together, because remember I said we're going to go below the neck and I want to drop into my body. So you can close the eyes if you want to, and simply take those 3 breaths. Now I feel present and connected with all of you. Fantastic. And even the people I can't see. So what I would like to see in the chat, first of all, is what your intention is for being here today. What do you want to experience? And it can be, I'm just here to learn and be curious, or I'm a coach, or Joker pose sounds like something I may need to get familiar with. Laura, hell yes, have fun, play with my friends. Beautiful. Yes, I love that. Think about setting the intention so what you gain from this is actually effective in creating the experience you want. Want to find how to be open and curious. I love that. That's fantastic. Thank you. Really nice. Oh, this one's juicy. I like this one. Learn where I'm laughing at things I shouldn't be. There is so much power. Thank you for that, Sarah. There's so much power in becoming familiar with the experience you're having when you create a shape with your body, so that you can recognize if you slip into that kind of mode of being unconsciously. And we'll go in deeper into that in a moment. Community and connection, and yes, and laugh more generally. This year didn't teach us anything about laughter, honey, and the power of laughter as a healing source. I don't know what you need in your life to learn that lesson. So let's play and get into it. So my intention is to bring you Joker pose, but in a way that serves you so that you can create what you want. So I want to state that intention outright. And you can feel free to ask me anything you want during this time. Okay. What do you think of when you hear Joker pose? What do you think of when you hear Joker? What's the energy or the archetype? What comes to you? The archetypal fool, not being serious, the fool. Yes, Batman. Batman, a chameleon. This is exactly the juicy bits that I wanted to get into. Child. Laughing and crying at the same time. Oh, like the theater mask faces. That's what that makes me think of. From the stream, somebody from the stream said, bringing out the silly. Yes. There is we could say a spectrum or a continuum, whatever language you feel is more appropriate. Bringing truth. I love that too. You can dial, I'm speaking metaphorically, you can dial the volume of these postures up really intensely, and you can bring them down so that the energy of what you're transmitting is really small, but you're still conscious of it. And with Joker pose, we have to be particularly aware of how much of that space we're pushing into, especially when we're around others. Because when the volume of the Joker is really loud, if it's not something that is desired around others, it can be an excluding experience. It can other you and push others away. So when you're using this energy, and that's the word I would use it for it, but it's also just a state of being or an emotional place you can move into or a persona you can create. You want to be aware of how you're doing it so that you're creating exactly the experience you want for yourself, as well as for people around you, if that's your intention. If it's not, you might be somebody who's considered not able to read the room appropriately. And so I'm reading the comments again. The sacred fool, the only one who could tell the king the truth. That is such a beautiful, I love that archetype of the Joker, the fool, the trickster, the comedian. There's so many synonyms to describe this experience that we're going to move into. So ask yourself, how often do I use that persona? So if, for instance, if I was on here with you, I'm pleasant, right? Hi, nice to see everyone. I'm going to teach you about Joker pose. Great. Okay, right, that sucked. But if if I was like, hey guys, I'm in New York City. I'm so fucking excited to see you. We're going to do this. Are you ready? Ooh, we're going to have so much fun. See what I mean? Right? But what if I got like manic and I was like, oh yeah, tell me in the comments what you say. That's weird. Like that's not appropriate. That is not that, but there are people that we know who here has been triggered by really annoying or insensitive individuals in a conversation with using humor as a way to break tension that they're uncomfortable with. And when that happens, Joker goes from the wise fool who could embody a certain lightness of being in order to deliver truths, and then it slides down that continuum into maniacal killer clown that is really off-putting. Like there's a reason why the adults, it's not just children, there's a reason why adults get really nervous around clowns. They're not always trustworthy, right? Like you see that really weird face and it's really exaggerated. And the Joker in Batman was a really effective character in that regard. He was mean. There's a mean-spiritedness that can come with the Joker if you're not careful in how you are using it. He was maniacal. He was not trustworthy. And he loved making people suffer. And he was good at showing it, right? And I have a personal love of that character, so I'm not saying he's not entertaining. There's a part of us that all goes, Or like the other person I think of is Loki in the Avengers movie, if we go pop culture, who was also like my favorite villain because I have issues. I only like date nice guys now because I'm in therapy. So, but death by laughing, yes. Yes, yes. So Loki's the trickster, right? So we have this cultural recognition cross-culturally about trickster energy, prankster energy, you know, so great. Let's play with the positives of it and let's go into it. Can you right now, as you're seated or if you're standing already, but before we get into the big expression of it, can you feel in your body where you are? Now you can orient yourself in space, like I'm sitting or I'm standing. So do what you need to connect to the ground. Because Joker's energy is very up and forward. So you might want to start with a little bit of grounding, just so you feel safe in that. It's a good home base, right? Just be like, and you can feel your breath and you can put your feet flat on the floor and yeah. And then when you feel ready, you can look at the camera and start getting a little off center. just a little bit. Yeah, see how everybody is fascinating. And this is the amazing neurological impact, psychoactive impact that EYP and this simple but effective practice brings. It becomes so universal, body language. Everyone did this. No matter where they are in the world, no matter who they are, they all started doing this. Okay, so let's work that volume button. Okay, let's dial it up. Let's bring it down so you can be here. And then start to go back into your serious grounded place so that we can play with the contrast of the experience. And we're going to do it in other ways too. Cool. All right, ready? Let's come back into that excited, like, oh, I'm really curious about what's going to happen here. Oh, this is really cool. I'm going to get into this. Okay. Now that expression can get bigger. You can maybe put your hands on your hips even when you're seated. So coaches in the room, if you have people who can't stand or do a yoga practice or fully embody the pose, or people who are uncomfortable, you can teach them how to be like, hey, get a little curious here. Okay, how good are you at reeling it back? It's gonna take a little bit of a going in and out, and you have to start to define that pathway inside of yourself. Because guess what? I could do that. I can go. But I'm not really done with the Joker, am I? Right? So it's not just this, it's your face. It's your breath. Where did your breath go? Can you feel that feeling of coming forward and up? I get a little excited in my belly. I really love Joker energy, and I live in New York City, best city in the world. You knew I was going to say it. You knew I was going to say it. All New Yorkers say the same thing. But man, do we get confrontational. So sometimes I have to go out into the world and use Joker as a way to, whatever, brush it off. Because if I took everything in that happens on a daily basis, on just a commute or just hanging out or just it can be a deflective mechanism. But it's the same kind of personification of that can also be excluding. So if you're okay with it, let yourself drift into a little bit of, not only am I going to be kind of curious and jokey and off center, I'm going to be a little mean. Yeah. And if you're like, oh, I don't know how to be that, I don't believe you for a fucking second. You're a human being. You can get a little mean. Yeah. Maybe you're just not used to having it come out so obviously, and you hold resentments and it comes out in other ways. This is how also when coaching with clients, you could help them to understand, how does your breath shift? How does your body change? How does your state of mind change when you get angry? And what do you do with that emotional charge? It's charged up, right? There may be some people here who are like, oh, I don't like this. I don't like this because it makes me think of so-and-so in my life. And it's upsetting. I know this. I may not know it in myself, but I know it in somebody else. It's okay. Pull it back. Remember we said that the energy is upward and forward, or yang. Bring it down. It's okay to know how far you can go with it in this kind of clinical setting so that you can better recognize it in yourself as opposed to being unconscious with it. Sometimes passive aggressiveness comes forward in this way. You know, you ever hear somebody give you when you've received a backhanded compliment? People from the South in the United States, they're fantastic at that. Sarah's like, oh yes, Scottish compliment. Laura said, oh, you see, there's all kinds of things happening here. Yeah, we know. So it's what I'm trying to bring forward for everybody in a really explicit way is that before we even get into the full expression of the standing posture, it's what you bring from the inside. And there's a pathway that you travel from grounded, centered, maybe more serious to, and you get to decide now that you're becoming familiar with it, how to use it. This is the practical magic of EYP for me. It gives me language like this to share this experience, but then I can decide how to move in the world with it. And I'll give you a quick personal account of this that kind of made me conscious of, even when I'm not malicious, Joker is not always appropriate. And a friend of mine recently was telling me a story, and he was hurt. And I couldn't get over, in the moment of him telling me the absurdity of the circumstances and how ridiculous people were being towards him. And I was laughing about that. And it wasn't my intention to make him feel unheard or belittled or dehumanize his experience or devalue it. But because I couldn't, and probably because I was maybe trying to protect myself from his own vulnerability in telling the story, maybe I got a little uncomfortable. I was laughing at it. And then I had to apologize, because I was like, I really want to clarify, I'm not laughing at you, I'm laughing at the scenario, but you don't feel heard. So in that moment, if my intention is to get off on it, then great, who cares? But if my intention is to come closer to my friend who's sharing a moment of vulnerability and feeling hurt and looking to me to create space for him to feel safe and hear him and say, I got you, that's not the energy that he needed to feel. Maybe somebody else could go, I'm so glad you're laughing at that. God, I feel so much better. It's not about good or bad. It's about, do I know how to consciously use this? And is the party I'm interacting with giving me the feedback? And can I read the feedback appropriately? Can I read the room? Read the fucking room. Is it working? Is it manifesting what you want? Is it creating the experience you want? Are you including people in your energy, or are you excluding people with your energy? Okay, that's enough pontification. Let's stand. that was enough. Good, everybody did a great job of listening to me. And I see some really good outfits today, but I wanted to bring like the same pants you probably saw in the email blast. These are like my great clowny pants. Still a little sexy, right? Like I am a fashion person. I am anywhere. Okay, I'm going to show you the full expression, and then I will show you how to further modify it for yourself. You already felt, by the way, that a lot of Joker, because that energy is upward, even though we're grounded, and it's a good place to be grounded. So now that we're standing, you can feel your feet on the floor. And if you remain seated, that's fine. Just feel your seat. But let your face change first. So before you're like, what's this look like? Start to bring it here, because the second your face changes, it draws the breath up differently. And I'm not using anatomical language. I'm talking about the feeling, okay? And that's where the focus is right now. And so what's your expression? And how do you start to breathe? And do you see how like I'm starting to get into like, so like even just standing, you can start to, let my body reflect, and let the shoulders, and you can maybe laugh a little bit, right? Okay, now we want to bring this energy forward. I want to get curious about my environment, and I want to maybe bring a sense of excited enthusiasm to the adventure of my life. I know there are coaches and therapists on here, and my therapist always tells me, don't be judgmental of your experience. Remain curious. That's really fucking easy when you're not drowning in your own negative emotions, right? Right? What? Oh yeah, I'm real. Yeah, he broke up with me in 5 minutes on the phone after being together for 4 years. I'm fine. I'm remaining open. I'm real curious about the experience. Okay, fair. But you have a choice. Make the choice to this. Anything can be difficult. Life can be challenging. How do I keep my sense of humanity and lightness of being? So I want you to put one foot behind you, and you can see I'm going to step back really far, and then I'll come close again. I'm just putting it behind me a little bit. Okay? Then I'm going to bring my arms out, almost like I'm saying, bring it on. Come on. Bring it on. So this is enough, okay? This is already, my toes are on the floor, so if you have a difficult time with balance, you can just infuse the movement, fill the pose with some movement. Come on. What you got for me? What you got? You think you got something that I can't handle? You don't know me. You don't know me, homie, right? Like it can be that, yeah. Or it can be, oh my God, this is so cool. What's happening? This is really exciting. Yeah, I love your faces. They look gorgeous. Look how open you are. And you still got that foot on the ground. So whatever comes at you, you got this. You got this. Okay, for those of you who want to dial it up, okay, see if you can take the back foot off the floor. And then you get to flirt with disaster. Right? Like what's the catastrophe coming towards you? I might fall. No, you won't. Just put your foot on the front. You're fine. Okay? Like that's it. Like, yes, and I'm loving the arms, and we have dancers here, and I'm seeing like snaky, sexy arm movement already is happening. And if it gets to be too intense, you can put the foot down. And if you're like, oh, I'm really excited about this, like think of kids. Think if you want to, I have a really hard time talking to kids because I'm like, are you cerebral? Can you speak to me like you're 35? No, they can't. That's really hard. That's my issue. So it's helpful to like, they're so good at being like, hey, look, this is kind of fun. It's weird. And like, oh, it's hard. Okay, let's practice bringing it in. Put the foot down. Hey, come back. Even the weight between your feet, that weight distribution, see how that affects the breath? Sometimes it's helpful to do the other side. And if you're like, oh, this is my bad balance side, keep your foot on the floor. It's up to you how you take this. It's up to you what you do. But I'm going to turn to the side again so you can see. My foot's going to remain on the floor. Now, I can go. Is this Joker pose? It's certainly not as fun as the last thing we just did. Right? So like, remember where we start? Bring it on. Now you can, depending on who you are, you can, I'm gonna flirt with this, or I'm gonna keep my foot on the floor, but I'm here, I'm ready for it. Come on. And I love that grounded foot practice because then I can go, ooh, too far. Right? Like that's really helpful. So it's kind of like, I love horror movies, obviously. So if you want to watch a horror movie and you're like, oh, I like getting scared, but it's scary, you can hit the pause. Yes, thank you. I love that. Perfect. Yes. So remember, now give yourself a little space and time to play in your body. I'm going to shut up for like 1 minute. It's very hard. It's very hard for me. But I want you to be able to experience it for yourself. I'm going to see if there's any comments in the chat. I'm missing? No. Yeah, breathe. Where am I in my breath? Hey, am I talking to somebody? Am I bringing this to somebody? Do I have a tough conversation to have that I want to bring something to? Do I have some challenge coming before me? You can use your breath if you're somebody who plays with energy. You can, right? Because we are speaking mostly to people who are interested in self-development, coaches and yoga teachers. I'm coming with the yoga in a moment, don't worry. But I want to expand it to witches too. So if anybody is trying to create a magical experience here, use that breath. Don't be afraid. Nobody can hear you. You're muted. You can be weird. I'm being weird. You can be weird. Perfect. Ooh, my girl Laura said, full moon. Give me everything you got, full moon. I want it. The moon gives us so much, right? I'm not going to go off on that. That's not what we're here for. That was yesterday's moon ritual. Okay, bring it in, bring it in, bring it in. Start to, what's your pathway? What's your mechanism? Okay, you just got caught, right? You were talking in the office and you were having too much a good time. Boss comes in and you got to be like, hey, yeah, no, I got everything you need for the meeting. I'm good. That's a tricky one, right? That's pretty good. You can go from to, oh shit, the boss is here. Hey, yeah. You see how so that's a stark comparison. Let's say you're a yoga teacher. How many, we got yoga teachers on here? Hey, Patricia. Mi comadre. So, okay. You know, yoga people, we get dramatic. Sometimes we want it to be like, right? Like you ever see, like when people, like you will always know yoga people stretching because they don't just go. It's like, right? So like, cool, okay, we can do that. I'm down. Sometimes I need the drama. We can go there. So you can put this into a sequence. Like if you're teaching a class, you know, there are plenty of times, even if from a position like this, I'm just going to use several variations. You can come up. And we've all done the, like, in those classes, the come up and then warrior 3. But what if it was like kind of fun? Right? So that's an easy way to go. That's like the obvious stuff, right? Down dog, bring the leg around. Oh, I can move into this. I can jump into that. That's the easy stuff. Easy? Why is it easy? Because it's obvious. That's why it's easy. Ninja level. Who's ready for ninja level? Everybody's like, yeah, show. You say that, right? Everybody's like, shit, yeah, you better show it to me. Okay, so let's think of a pose that has, at first, it doesn't seem to have elements of this. Triangle. Now, if you can't see my feet, you're not familiar with triangle. I'm just turning one foot out. It's not important. It's going to be mostly this. Yeah, I'm in triangle pose. That's cool. But if I wanted to bring a sense of what Joker means to some people, go back to the archetypes. Oh, maybe wisdom, maybe a lightness of being, maybe playfulness. I don't have to move anything in my body, but I can enjoy a stretch. And I can go, oh yeah, God, that feels good. There's a certain enjoyment, right? That it's in my face, it's in my breath. Oh, so instead of like that tightness sometimes people get when they're in a pose, that's sort of like what I mean by ninja level. How do you infuse whatever you're doing? How do you take a drink from your cup of water and be in Joker? How do you bring this energy forward with the intention of benefiting someone? How do you bring this persona forward with the intention of healing and facilitating a healing experience? That's what I meant by ninja level, right? The external stuff is really easy to manifest. Make a shape, fill the shape. How do I use this in the world? How do I affect my relationships with this? Yeah, break the seriousness with a little lightness. Perfect. I love that. Thank you, Sarah. Yeah, you can maybe help somebody out of something. You ever piss somebody off with being too jokey? Yeah, that'll happen. How about intimacy? And intimacy doesn't have to just be sexual. It can be emotional. It can be intimacy with a friend or a sibling but you can break it, right? By like cracking a joke. And then that can become compulsive. And this is why it's really important to use this kind of play to recognize it in yourself. So that if you start to move into it, you can go, oh, hey, my Joker's taking over. And it shouldn't be like, no. Maybe it's coming forward to protect you. Maybe there's an instinct, right? But you could say, not right now. Thank you. Thank you so much for being available. Let's pick something else. Maybe you're in a situation where you can't express it this aggressively that you're like, yeah, bring it on. But for anybody who did any of the other poses, yes pose. Maybe you need to be able to, oh, you know what, I'm really excited and I'm curious, but this is a situation in which I need to accept a little bit more. And when we do yes pose in EYP, it's about bringing that energy backwards and being more grounded and just accepting Simply saying yes, right? So, but you can still be okay in doing it. It doesn't, not everything has to be like this, right? But there's wisdom in the Joker. In tarot cards, we have the archetype of the Fool, and like Christina said in the chat earlier, it's the only Joker that you can really, the Joker troll, yeah, the Joker troll. And then sometimes the Joker is the only one who can bring insight. You ever have that friend who always seems like they're never paying attention, and then they come up with some wise ass shit that you're like, where the fuck that come from? You've been paying attention this whole time? You're awake? You know? We all have that stoner friend, which is great. Okay, you know, they just come with some wisdom sometimes. So, but let's contrast the pose, which we've been doing a little bit, and then I want to make time for more. If I'm pontificating too much, please, you can put it in the chat. You can tell me if there's a question about application. You can tell me if there's anything. I'm gonna keep going. Okay, my friend Laura, she taught surrender pose. If you can't tell, I hate that. So I want us to play for a moment in surrender. Now, if surrender pose in EYP, the fullest posture is, it looks like child's pose. And so that's a big transition, right? From this to, so why don't you, in yourself, in your body, you can sit in your chair and just go inward and then come out again. You can feel what it's like to go into full surrender. And then to come out of it and to start to move into Joker. What's very helpful about that physical practice is that it teaches you the pathway that you need to take to lubricate the transition more easily from one energy or one state of being to another. And what I like about being in this part of our EYP conference this far in, you have so many poses to compare and contrast this to. There are elements of everything that cross over. Like if you put all 26 postures in a Venn diagram, you're gonna see that they all share some elements, and then they don't. For me, there's a lot of sensuality pose in Joker, which Patricia did a great job of teaching. So in sensuality pose, but there's a part of me that can't ever stop being like if I was a drag queen, I'd be a comedy queen. It's always part of me. So if I'm like, yeah, I'm being sexy. You know, like it's, you know, it can be like that. So you can find when you have this language available to you in your body, you can start to say, hey, there's similarity here and there's similarity here. And then you can start going all over the place. And then what do you want to experience? How do you combine postures? Or how do you just come out of something if you need to comfort yourself? So we're going to start to do a little bit more of that. I want to take us back to a little more grounding, and then I'll ask some more questions. But whether you're standing or seated, this is up to you. We've kind of stirred up a lot, and we even vocalized it, right? I saw people laughing and getting excited, and that's great. But what do you need as an individual to gather that energy back? If Joker pose is about bringing it forward and engaging. So if energy is like, I don't know what that means, how do you bring your mental focus back into yourself? How do you bring it back in your body? Breath, one of the easiest places to go. You can pick an EYP pose that for you feels appropriate. You don't have to express it fully. Maybe you need to shut down a little bit, like in surrender. You can just go inward. You can touch your body. Oh, I'm solid. Yeah, bring a little earth energy into the practice, right? Can you hear my voice? Can you hear how the tone and the quality is starting to come down? I'm not as... there is an enormous benefit to yourself and to everyone you come in contact with when you have this level of self-awareness. When you have the ability at any given moment to go inside and feel what you're up to. Conscious awareness, radical responsibility for your experience. I'm going to choose this persona. I'm going to choose this feeling to move me through the world. And that is really the beauty of the EYP system. Makes it so simple. We've kind of traveled all over the place today, right? We've gone to archetypes and we've done all this. And I love going all over the place. I'll pull out a joker card in the tarot and go, what are you here to teach me? What wisdom? Give it to me. The moon. I will go to the moon. And then I can take it to a client who doesn't do any of that and go, here, hey, how do you feel today? What is the image you can bring to me? What's the language you're going to use? And even if they don't know how to totally describe it, it gives me as a practitioner tools to help draw it out for them and not give them the answer. I need to hear them and their experience. Does that make sense? But the language, you're able to have an experience and you can transmit it. If you think about in your yoga practice or as a coach, just having the ability to transmit also the energy, the personification of these feelings, of these states of being. When you get really practiced with them, you don't even have to go all out. So if you're willing to, because now we're a little calmer, you can share in the chat if you had a negative experience with something we've done today, if you had a positive experience. Think back to your goal, your intention of being here. Laura, loved tracking the pathway out to Joker and into the depth of presence. Yeah, great. Patricia, confirming the beauty of using Joker in everyday life. Yeah, yeah. Service it is for others. Yeah, it can be. Yeah. Everything can be of service. And if you're consciously aware in how you use it, everything can be of service. And I don't think anybody hears anything we've shared in the EYP presentation so far as a do this, don't do this. It's more of a smorgasbord of these are elements and states of being inside of you that you can access if you most desire. Try this on. Yes, you can try it on, make a shape, you can try it on. And then you can develop it, you can curate it. Sari, realizing you use it in conversation, both when you want to, maybe when you don't want to. Katie, I so want to play around with this with my 5 and 7-year-old boys. Yes, perfect. They're going to be great at this. They tend more towards the Joker side, and I love playing around with coming back. Plus, it'll help me to learn to go more into my Joker. Yeah, somebody said something really interesting to me, and I think if you have children in your life, this is fantastic because they embody this really easily. And sometimes, right, we have to show them how to, hey, pull it back a little bit. But you don't want to snuff it out. You don't want to take that from them. And so having this co-regulation, this like interplay of, hey, do you know what you're doing? Is this what you want? Is this what you're trying to do? That's a good conversation with adults as well. Letting the playful soul inside a chance to come into the light and express itself. Oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. There's so much play that is valuable to us. Christina, beautiful distinction between humor towards and humor away from. Yeah. Is my coming towards you pushing you away? I'm really good at that. Oof, I'm good at that. I'm not always so good at bringing people in, because sometimes I feel scared. A lot of this is bluster to protect, right? It's what we learn to do. Learning to find comfort in the unbalance. Yes. Yeah, right? It's that stuff when your therapist is like, remain curious, and you're going through a crisis. Listen, practice it now while things are maybe copacetic, so that when it comes around and things get tough, that's when you can call upon this kind of work. God, there's so many great comments from Kara. I had shut down a lot of my trickster as I had judged it when not received, probably meaning like not received well by others. Today has given me the tools to have the practice for conscious awareness. Thank you. Don't make me teary-eyed. I'm going to try to hold it together, because that's really the goal. The goal is to give each of and every individual the power to choose the experience they want. Vulnerability pose. Sometimes I think it is even funnier when people don't get my jokes. She likes to be the only one who gets it. She's like, you don't get it. You don't get it. That's why Laura and I get along. So Sarah asks, how do you point out the joker in someone else who needs to see that they are using it maliciously? That's a great. Do you mean personally or as a coach? Personally. So personally, you have lots of choices, but sometimes when, like we discussed earlier, and this is something I know coaches and therapists would probably confirm and echo, and I'll wrap this up because Christina's probably going to have to make some announcements soon. You can be, or I say as a coach, like you don't want to bring shame. That's my fear when coaching somebody. I don't want to bring shame to their experience. I would like to ask, do you know how you're coming across right now? Is this your intention? I think there's power in giving people the benefit of the doubt. So like when I'm coaching and somebody tells me a story, and I'm a human being, okay, with an ego like everybody else. So if I'm like, that's fucking crazy, why would you do that? Why did you make that choice? I can't say that to somebody and help them, but I can ask, well, that's interesting. Did you mean for your behavior to be perceived as such? Did you mean for that message to be put out in this way? Tell me what your intention is, and I'll help you clarify it. I'll help you fine tune it, and then help you transmit it in the way that you want to be seen and heard. As opposed to, right? Because that's not it. Now, in a personal setting, that's up to you. There's also boundaries. Some people can't stop the Joker. You want to think of, we talked about the Joker and Batman, but like it's not trustworthy with some people who can't stop. You don't trust them, like psychopaths and things like that. Like you're like, so Patricia, coach, help me understand how this is. Yes. Thank you, Patricia. Yes. Katie, I had a client who would turn his jokester towards himself. We explored how that was working for him. Was he feeling more connected with his friends, less connected? Was he receiving the support response he wanted from his friends? That's beautiful. That's a beautiful line of questioning, because it doesn't judge it. It just goes, is this what you wanted? Like kind of like bring your own jokester curiosity. Is this, oh, I don't think I get it. So it's still light. Like because if somebody's in that place, if you try to go, do you realize that you're coming across as really inappropriately? That's such a jarring contrast in energy and exchange. Like it's helpful to meet somebody where they are, and then you can help bring them into another place of presence, in my humble opinion. From an EYP perspective. Yes, yeah. This is the beauty of it, right? Like you can go, tell me exactly that same story, or tell me exactly the same message you want to convey, but let's have you sit back this time. Can you put your hands on your lap? Right? Like you know what you're doing, and you don't even have to tell them. We're not going to put you into this pose and have you transmit your energy, because sometimes you can't connect to that, but they can have the experience, and then you can go, oh, wouldn't that be interesting if you use that the next time you spoke to so-and-so? I bet they'd be able to hear you better. And then you're really clever about it, right? You sneak it in. And they go, oh, okay. And then you can ease people into that. Yeah. Christina, how am I doing on time?
We got to wrap it up soon, but I'm also enjoying the exchange and answering the questions right now.
I mean, the insights from people are phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely amazing. I feel so blessed with this group and everybody streaming on YouTube and Facebook. And I'm hoping what people see is even though this was a really fun one to do, there's a gravity to this practice and how it can change you and change people around you. It's really in everyone's greatest good that we become more conscious in this particular framework. And I'm so grateful for it. Honestly, I've learned so much, even being in it all the time. Like when we go to the other Zooms, there's so much I'm always learning where I'm like, oh, right, perfect. I should say that from now on. That's a way less crazy way to say it. Sometimes I often need help with finding the way less crazy way to say something, or the more direct way. It's very easy for me to be direct. Don't do that. That's fucking crazy. That's not going to help you. That's not useful. That's not useful language, by the way. When you're like coaching, you want to meet somebody where they are. And maybe you can't always do it unless you're good with yourself.
Mm.
Right? So if you're grounded and you're coming healthy and you're like, how do I want to help this person? How do I meet them where they are? Then you're more effective in all your relationships, whether professional or personal. The joy of learning and diving into stuff. Yes. Laura.
So how about I'll get back to you, Melissa, in a sec, and actually ask you your top tip how to get Joker pose realized in your life. But before that, I want to mention a couple of things. I mentioned up front already that if you really want to go deeper into this and learn the entire spectrum of poses and possibilities and build your own sort of pathways and contrast poses and all that, we have 3 different options for you that you can choose from. If it's like all just about learning for yourself, you can go for that. And Alicia will scroll down a little bit. There are these beautifully put together courses that you can do at your own pace. And they have, as you can see here, pictures of each pose, explanations of each pose, and the different inquiries you can do with it. So there's actually a quite straightforward method and like a recipe in a cookbook. You can be like, okay, and these are the questions you can ask yourself. And then there's a second option, that's the coaching version, which gives you a bit more detail on how to bring it into your coaching in a safe way, how to create a container, how to relate it to your clients, and like what Melissa just mentioned as well, how to sneak it in maybe, sometimes you don't need to reveal like, okay, how about I put you into this particular pose, it's called that way, but how to actually just be like, okay, lean back, do these, and there are principles inherent in all the different poses that you'll get to know, which could be just up, down, like where to put your focus, what to do with your face, and all these little details. And then there's the third option, if you want to keep scrolling down, Alicia, which is the teacher training. So that's the full-fledged yoga teacher training where you get to understand how to bring it into a flow, how to create your own classes, how to follow a U structure, which really nicely brings people into depth, but also out of it, where to use certain poses, what for, and also get to connect it with the entire community. So both the coaching and the teacher training have community calls as part of that. And if you want to seek that out, there'll be a link under this stream. There'll be a link here in the chat. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Obviously, it needs to be right for you and you need to have the clarity for yourself. So if there's anything that's holding you back or that you want to still know, then feel free to reach out to us as well. And I really, 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 really enjoyed the Joker pose and how you tickled out the differences between how to use it, where to use it, and also brought your very own flavor once again, which was very, very beautiful. And now I'll just bring it back to you with how would you advise someone to get into Joker? One top tip.
It's gonna be toughy, a toughie, but it's very helpful. And it's sort of, I was saying flippantly before when my therapist says to me, because even body witches need therapists. I have a whole village, honey, that keeps this together so that I can be of service to the world. And she says, remain curious. But another way to say that, which helps open the doors to every experience for me, and to call in something like Joker and be more lighthearted. Suspend judgment. Which is tough. But the more you start practicing, the easier it is to go, I choose to laugh this off. Then it's a lot easier.
Beautiful. Thank you. And maybe just taking the shake can help you suspend the judgment.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Thank you so much, Melissa. It was a real pleasure. And also for you to know what's coming up next, 9 a.m. UK, is pushing pose with me. Maybe you have, you know, the need for some more drive in your life, or maybe you're pushing too much. Then come join me or watch the recording with pushing pose. And we've had enthusiasm after that with Mark. So if you want to bring a bit more juicy passion and the fuck yeah flavor, that's coming up at 12. It is 12 UK. So yeah, join us, share with friends. We're still running for a whole day. And yeah, it was lovely spending this hour with you. Thank you, everyone. Maybe you can unmute everyone. We can be like, bye. In our jokery way, bye.
So grateful for you here. Thank you. Bye.
Bye, everyone on the stream, on the recording as well. Thank you, Alicia, for your amazing tech wizardry.
Thank you, Karen. The recording has stopped.
Stop the streaming too.
Sarah, what were you saying?